Good morning, and welcome to our community meeting reflecting on the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you to all the students who had the opportunity to submit reflections. We read all of them and were deeply moved by what you had to say. Today, 10 of your peers have graciously agreed to share their reflections, and you will hear from them about fences, visible and invisible. You will hear about people that have helped them see those fences and get over those fences. You will hear about their fears and concerns for the American dream, but most of all, you'll hear about their hopes for our American dream. Our hope is that you will not only be able to be inspired and to listen, but also, as we go forward, to act.
I volunteer down at Boston Children's Hospital, where I play with the funniest, most resilient kids you'll ever meet. One afternoon, right before Christmas, a nurse called me into an inpatient room to hold Nadia, a 1-month-old post-cardiac surgery who could not stop crying. My job was to sway back and forth in the rocking chair and comfort her. The second Nadia's head touched my arm, her crying ceased, and our eyes locked until she fell asleep 10 minutes later. For the first time, I experienced the healing process of a patient right in my arms. As a volunteer, I spend my day blowing bubbles and handing out stickers to bring smiles to kids' faces. These activities, I believe, were instrumental in helping sick kids. That's why I got up at 4:30 a.m. every morning, just so I could bring joy to every child I would see that day. But with Nadia, I believed I was giving her love and affection, which was vital to her recovery, even more important than joy. This humbling experience is why I want to combine my love for helping kids with my passion for medicine and hopefully one day become a pediatric surgeon. As Ronald Reagan once said, we can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone.
This nation has been through so much. And no, I'm in no way proud of some of the things we have done to people in this land and abroad. There is no way to justify American slavery, for example, and the mistreatment of people based on their complexion, or the removal of Native people from their land in order to claim it for ourselves. I will never understand why we have been hypocritical and sought to free other nations only to take them as our own and oppress people, demanding them to live as we do, or not to live at all. No, there are no ways to justify some of the cruel actions that we have done. However, this nation is special. And despite appearing barbarous at times, we are a remarkable and unique place. We have grown so much, and part of the reason is because we are learning from our past in order to make this nation better than we found it. That is the American dream, to be better people and to leave our descendants with a better future. That is why we are striving for the best and trying to improve our nation economically and socially. It's going to take time for this country to reach perfection, but it has come a long way from its start. For many people, this country is hope and a chance to be better. It is an example for many other nations who are seeking freedom from their oppressive governments and instability. That is why my parents went through the struggle of becoming American citizens, because they knew that there was something special about this nation and its people. So yes, reflecting on this nation's history is not always pleasant. But there are so many great things that we have accomplished that many other nations are far from achieving. My hope is that we continue to make it good. No, the best that it can be. My hope is that every generation continues to strive for Dr. Martin Luther King's dream of a land that is truly free for all. It's not a perfect nation, but it's a good one. Let's continue to make it even better.
My grandfather was an immigrant to America, a trailblazer for his family, having his sister follow after him. He had a dream, to give his children a life that was comfortable and not filled with danger. He started a small medical practice in downtown Manchester and married my grandmother, not soon after starting a small family. I see his dream come true every day whenever one of his children, my aunts, uncles, or moms, succeed in life.
One thing that's helped me see invisible fences is music. Many of the popular musicians that have been topping the charts have careers in rapping or writing about the injustices done to those and those around them. Some examples of these are J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, and Logic. Each of these artists tell their own stories but do it through music. Logic, a rapper who came out with the song Take It Back on his 2017 album Everybody, told a story about his childhood filled with racism and poverty, and how he overcame this by becoming a performer and spreading a message of peace, love, and positivity. In addition, Kendrick Lamar, an artist originating from Compton, tells one of his stories while talking about police injustices in his song All Right. In this song, Kendrick raps about the police brutality and the corruption but finishes with a positive outlook saying, "We're gonna be all right." Finally, J. Cole is compassionate for others while viewing their struggles, but sees positive qualities in the beauty of the struggle and the ugliness and the success. Each of these artists have the power to describe injustices or invisible offenses and broaden the views of those who listen to them.
Diversity is a complex and multifaceted issue that cannot be described or explained by simply one story or essay. For the sake of this piece, I'm going to focus solely on a single friendship and its implications on how I view the world. One day, Crystal and I were sitting outside our school on a particularly warm spring day, and in a passive attempt to avoid the work we had been assigned, we began talking about the abnormally beautiful weather that spring day. This talk launched into a discussion of Crystal's home city of Shenzhen, China. From there, I began cheerfully berating Crystal about her life in China. I asked all kinds of questions from, can you actually not access Google, Twitter, or even Snapchat? To, does it feel like communism limits your life? As the conversation continued, it became more in-depth and serious to the point where we were discussing and researching the minuscule details of Chinese elections and economics in an attempt to explain how China functions and succeeds with a capitalist economy but a communist political system. As we were talking, I became bewildered that Crystal did not see the world or democracy as I did. She did not believe democracy to be the ultimate solution to the world's political problems, and I could not understand how even though we had essentially the same education, we could not see eye to eye. I became more and more frustrated until I realized that my reaction was in fact the problem. My inability to understand that Crystal's beliefs as a Chinese citizen were rightly different than mine is the inherent issue within the American perspective. As an American, I was so endowed with the ideas of democracy and the ideals of our country's forefathers that I could not comprehend a contradictory viewpoint. While I still fully believe in democracy, my conversation with Crystal has allowed me to see the world's international conflicts more completely. I am now able to understand why countries do not always appreciate the United States relief effort or international policy efforts, and why the concept of American exceptionalism is often seen in a negative light. Although my beliefs did not change after this conversation, my perspective did, and thus I benefited from the diversity around me. Diversity does not simply mean having different types of friends, peers, or family. It means learning from these individuals' differences. Diversity is positively interacting with people that hold different beliefs, traditions, and origins than yourself in a manner that allows you to question, evaluate, or reaffirm your view of the world.
I hope for the day in which people will recognize and care about the fences which divide us. There is so much nonchalance in people's opinions in present day because people do not care to listen and to understand the many different opinions people have. Most people are so deeply rooted in their belief that their opinion is right that it creates an increasingly blurred line between opinion and fact, which doesn't allow for discussion about the fences that divide everyone: race, gender, political party, etc. Fewer and fewer people choose to talk, care about, or take action on important, relevant issues that are facing our country. This increasing irreverence, I believe, is one of the largest issues facing the American dream. The foundation of the American dream is equality to opportunity, and these fences that we can't talk about are stopping people across the country from achieving their dreams.
Returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Martin Luther King. If we want to stop unfairness, segregation, and injustice in the world, the first solution is to find a way to change the world peacefully. This quote clearly describes Martin Luther King's objectives and how he found a way to protest without the riots and violence. The world is filled with unfairness and cruelty. But the only way to eliminate this is to show kindness. Martin Luther King Jr. was special. What set him apart was his ability to not let anger cloud his judgment, allowing him to influence millions of people for the better. This quote reminds me of another quote, "An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind," by Mahatma Gandhi. Martin Luther King changed America for the better through peaceful protest and a dream of fairness for all people.
We must use time creatively and forever realize that the time is always ripe to do right. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You can't just wait around for the perfect time to make a difference and to solve a problem that is either worldwide or a problem just in your town or city. If you don't do anything now or soon, the problem that is happening will keep on happening, or possibly get worse. When King says we must use time creatively, I think it is very inspiring because it shows that you should work in challenging and creative ways to make the difference you make meaningful and significant. But even if you can only make a small impact on the problem, you can still make a change for the problem to disappear.
When I think of the American dream, I think of what my mother has created for herself and for her family. Though she did not come from another country into this one, or was born into a race that is apparently different from the rest of white America, what she faced definitely had common themes to what minorities may face. My mother talks about her childhood, but she never brings up her struggles. She mentions them in passing, but does not dwell on them. Instead, she often remarks on how she was able to become what she is only through these struggles, and that, I believe, is American. The United States is viewed as the place where you can build your way up from nothing. When I think of what my mother does today, one of the main thoughts that always comes to mind is she shouldn't have been able to get to where she is. That's near impossible. That's true, but she was able to use what the United States has to offer and get to where she is now. The United States of America has so much to offer its citizens, but few take advantage of this. My mother went into the military so that she could help people there and then be able to attend medical school. She later got into medical school and left the United States Air Force, but without that, she would not be where she is today. My mother would not have gotten to the place she is today had she waited for the opportune moment. She built this life for herself, and that is what I think of as the American dream. Do not wait for extraordinary circumstances to do good. Try to use ordinary situations. Jean Paul Richter.
Dr. Carter talked about the fear felt because of invisible race fences, how housing fences fell at Lulu's feet because she is white. Dr. Carter never noticed these fences before because they weren't part of the landscape of her life. For some, these fences aren't invisible. Many must climb countless fences each day. They arrive breathless at a place Dr. Carter crossed long ago without any thought. We have all heard the idea of the American dream, the dream Haruki Murakami promoted when he said, "You can't choose how you're born, but you can choose how you die." Millions have clung to that American dream as a sign of hope over the last 240 years, but how many have truly had the ability to reach it? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. lived in a world where Black people faced their entire lives out of breath. As hard, as fast, as long as they ran, their dreams always lie out of reach. He spent his life trying to shorten the journey to their dreams. In our world today, the distance to a person's dreams can often still be measured by where they are born, by facts beyond their own control. Over the last 2 years, I've begun to see the fences raised by poverty, fences I was never able to see before. A child born into a family plagued by poverty worries about food, while a child born into financial security worries about his homework. The distance to their shared dream of a college education will not be equal. The child born into financial security will reach his senior year, yet to have to run for something, while the child born into poverty will arrive at his senior year out of breath. He had to worry if he would have enough to eat every day for the last 18 years. But if he wishes to assure that his children won't face the same struggle, he must keep running. Already tired and out of breath, his dreams are still miles away. Like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we can be the ones to shorten his journey. The truth behind the distance to the American dream is uncomfortable, and we don't mean to push it from our minds. But when those fences aren't blocking our own paths, they can be difficult to see. Let us remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and honor him for all the good he did in his life. But let us also remember that there are so many people in this world whose journeys are still too long. Let us take a moment each day to think about those less fortunate than us and what we can do to help them. Let us follow in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s footsteps and work towards a world in which everyone's dreams become accessible.